Can you think of anything worse than being a Concordia student right now?
When I transferred from Marylhurst.
Well, she can. She actually transferred to Concordia, which closed on Monday, after she studied at Marylhurst, which closed in 2018.
It was one of the worst experiences I'd ever had.
You know those meetings that should have just been emails?
The motion that is on the floor now is to have the staff come back.
Well, Salem City Council had one of those. They actually had a meeting to schedule another meeting about their homeless crisis. And how's a little free money sound? Okay, how about a lot of free money? Like $1.7 billion in free money. Oregon is getting a killer kicker this year. If you Oregon newbies afraid to ask, don't worry, we'll explain what the kicker is. Here's the story.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Dan Haggerty. Thanks for being with us. Welcome to The Story. This is the newscast where you can essentially become part of the story. All you got to do is take out your phone, pick it up, give us a follow on Twitter @TheStoryKGW, then use the hashtag HeyDan. I know what you're saying. A lot of you are going, Dan, hey man, I don't use Twitter. That's okay. Use Instagram or Facebook or email or call us or send us a letter or learn how to use Twitter. It's really fun. We might just respond to you live on TV, so why don't we get started? So you know those meetings at work, stuff like that could have just been an email? Salem City Council had one of those on Monday night. Well, it started as a meeting and then it turned into a meeting about planning to have another meeting. I know, it's thrilling. I know you at home are not all insane people like we are who watch city council meetings like they're episodes of Game of Thrones. So allow me to catch you up on what's going on inside Oregon's capital. First, it voted at the end of last year to ban tent camping, but it promised that it would provide 140 shelter beds by January 1st of this year. Then on January 2nd of this year, it immediately broke that promise by providing exactly 0 shelter beds. But in the city's defense, they did eventually open up some new beds 3 weeks later, 9 of them. So back to Monday night's meeting about a meeting, the meeting that actually started as a conversation about softening its camping ban. But then that evolved into a discussion about an even more severe sit-lie ban, which basically is banning people from so much as sitting or lying on the sidewalk. In the end, council voted 5-4 to meet about it again on February 24th, maybe to vote on it, or at least they tried to.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Okay. Ayes.
Wait a second, what are we voting on the call of the question?
No, we're moving the call
Substitute.
question.
No.
You have to
When he moves to call the question.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
All right, a little bit of confusion. I shouldn't laugh. All right, eventually they did get around to holding a vote on this, to hold another vote eventually. When that happens, we will let you know if it happens. All right, let's move on now to our big story tonight, and it is all about Concordia again. Why shouldn't it be? When an entire university decides to shut down, it affects a whole lot of people, like the more than 5,000 students who go there. But it also affects the 1,518 staff members that we just learned today would all be laid off. Professors, custodians, groundskeepers, everybody, 1,500 people trying to find a job by April 25th. But now we want to tell you about this woman. This is Lauren Harris. She's a Concordia student, but she was also a student at Marylhurst when it shut down in 2018, which means that Lauren has now paid for 2 college degrees and received neither of them.
Yeah, I've learned a lot, and I've absolutely learned a lot. I think after this, I'll be better for it, but again, I need that degree. I've worked hard for it, and I paid for it.
When Lauren was forced to leave Marylhurst, she only had 2 classes left, 6 credits to graduate. But here's the tricky part. You can't just switch to a new college and take those 2 classes and be done with it. Every school has its own curriculum to earn a degree with its name on it. So kind of think of a business degree, hers, like a salad, a dish that can be made a million different ways. And when it came time to transfer, Lauren's business salad and the salad they made at Concordia kind of shared the most ingredients. Concordia offered her a program that would get her a diploma with 24 more credits. Compare that to PSU and U of O, where she says she needed anywhere between 54 and 74 additional credits, which costs a whole lot more money. So she went to Concordia to save time and to save money, only to waste both.
I paid for a degree that I didn't get. So now I'm paying for it twice, which I have, and it's massive amounts of debt. I mean, it's almost $80,000, and I still don't have a degree to show for it.
So right now, Lauren has a credit and a half left to graduate, which isn't very much, right? So she's hoping to work with Concordia, maybe some type of internship situation to earn that. There is a college fair coming up, but Lauren isn't very hopeful about that considering how it went for her first time around.
when they had their university fair, where they brought in all of these other universities to talk with students, it was one of the worst experiences I'd ever had. People were crying. The other universities really didn't have much information other than this is who we are and this is how much tuition is. There were no agreements that anyone honored, so it was a cluster.
While Lauren is figuring out now her education for the third time, we can't tell you that nursing students at Concordia's accelerated program, they're kind of the fortunate ones, you could say, in all of this, because they're going to be able to stay on and finish their degree at the school's brand new Columbia River campus, because Concordia's St. Paul branch said it will incorporate the nursing school and keep it afloat. So this next story is a story about doing the right thing and how it doesn't always pay off the way it should. We told you yesterday about a man who reported racist harassment at work to his boss. Then his boss did the exact wrong thing and got his buddies at the West Linn Police Department to harass the guy. Now Michael Fesser just settled for about $600,000 for all that harassment. Police actually arrested him. They threw him in jail for a made-up charge. Turns out his boss would rather have fake arrested this guy than to deal with a possible discrimination lawsuit. So the big update we have for you today is that the Clackamas County District Attorney will review this case now and look at whether the police officers actually broke the law. A couple of hours ago, West Linn's new police chief released a big statement basically saying the department has turned over since this happened. The one sergeant who was involved and still works there is now on paid leave, and officers have to go through bias and diversity training. Hey, if you need a little bit of encouragement to get your taxes done, who doesn't? Here you go. Oregon's handing out its biggest kicker rebate ever, like $1.7 billion big, billion with a B. So a lot of you are probably thinking, yay, that's free money, I like free money. But I bet you that some of you who are fairly new to Oregon, like I recently was, are saying, wait, what the heck's a kicker? Well, it ain't just a position on a football field.
If you're one of the 112 people who move to Oregon every day, you might not know that we haven't always gotten free money back when the taxman cometh. Oregon's kicker law was passed in 1980. It was a response to anti-tax sentiment. Here's how it works. If Oregon collects 2% more in taxes than it expects to, then we, the taxpayers, get that extra money back. And in the 80s, that meant getting a check in the mail, hence this super old video of checks sliding down conveyor belts. Man, we really need to update our archives. Anyway, economy good, you get kicker. Economy bad, no kicker. And who doesn't like free money, right? Well, some people. They think the kicker should go to schools or PERS because they always need money. Last year, Governor Brown floated using the kicker for PERS, but that didn't go anywhere. And other leaders proposed saving it for a kind of rainy day fund. Again, no dice. So for now, most of us are getting a little something back in our state tax returns. If you're part of the 112 and you have some questions for us, pick up your phone, follow us on Twitter or Facebook, any of that stuff. Just use the hashtag #HeyDan.
A guy named Robert asked us a question on Twitter. He asked, hey Dan, what can you tell us about the PDX arts tax and what it's doing for the city? Where is the benefit? Well, Robert, your $35 a year helps to pay for arts education at public schools, and it funds grants for nonprofits. And this is actually a pretty timely question because this year the way that the money is distributed is changing a little bit. Now, most of the money is split between 6 school districts. The bigger the district, the more money they get. The law requires that schools spend it on art or music teachers for kindergarten through 5th grade. When KGW looked into this a few years ago, we found that PPS actually received more than half of the money from the arts tax that was raised in 2014. The district told us it paid for the salaries of 85 teachers. A smaller district like, say, Park Rose gets much less. That year, they were able to hire 3 music teachers with arts tax money. Money that doesn't go to the schools, well, that money goes to the RACC, the Regional Arts and Culture Council. It gives grants to arts and performance organizations like the Portland Art Museum, for instance, or the Oregon Ballet Theater. And this is where we're going to see some changes. Now, in the past, the size of the grant depended on the size of the organization's budget. So the city's biggest nonprofits were getting the biggest checks. This year, the RACC will also consider how an organization serves underrepresented communities. So smaller, diverse nonprofits could end up seeing a little bit more money. And the bigger guys like the Portland Art Museum could expect to see a little bit of a drop, maybe even a big drop. But considering they just cashed a $10 million check from Arlene Schnitzer, I think they're going to be okay. By the way, you do need to pay your arts tax separately from your normal tax bill. Jeff Burling had a question about a topic we love to talk about, cap and trade. He asked with the hashtag, "Hey Dan, wasn't cap and trade originally promoted as a solution to pollution by Republicans?" That is a great question and a great rhyme, Jeff. It might seem a little bit weird since Republicans are so against cap and trade. They literally went into hiding instead of voting on it last session. But the idea of emissions trading started in the Reagan and George H.W. Bush administrations. It was to deal with acid rain, and it worked. Acid rain emissions plummeted in the mid-90s. They put caps on how much pollution could be emitted, but also let big companies trade emissions permits. That way, some companies could emit more if they wanted to, and some would emit less. It was a market-based approach, and that was something that appealed to conservatives. In fact, at the time, some environmental groups didn't think it went far enough. We got another question from Kurt Conger on Facebook. He wanted to know who decides how much a company is allowed under cap and trade, how much carbon will be allowed. Kurt, here's the short answer. Oregon lawmakers will decide. The bill they're working on right now, big polluters would need a permit to emit 1 metric ton of emissions. Right, Dan, but how do they decide on the 1 metric ton? Well, that's a pretty standard number used in other cap and trade systems, so they went with that. And if you're wondering how leaders decided on their long-term goals, Pat Doris has your answer.
Oregon's proposed cap-and-trade law calls for greenhouse gas emissions to be cut to at least 45% below 1990 levels in the state by the year 2035 and 80% below 1990 by 2050. So what's up with 1990? Why is it so special? Well, it's the benchmark date the United Nations used when 192 parties agreed to the Kyoto Protocol. That's the world's first serious effort to control greenhouse gases. The United States did not implement the protocols, but when an advisory group to Oregon's governor took up the issue in 2004, it also used 1990 as the benchmark, and the date has stuck ever since.
Now, it's a really complicated issue. You know that. There's a ton of different elements to cap and trade into this bill. It's an 86-page bill, and that's why we put together, Pat specifically, a bunch of these little explainers that you can find on our YouTube channel. And we've got even more Pat Doris on the way for you. He's got another installment of his Power Struggle series, looking at the impacts of coal plants shutting down in Oregon. We're going to have that for you tomorrow, right here on The Story.
When The Story continues.
Sorry, it gets hard to talk about this.
The first time we talked to Vanessa, she was in jail. The last time?
It's important. It's doing the work that matters.
She was speaking up for the women who still are. And something that's worth your time from an Oregon native who made it big.
In a world where the temperatures are higher, but the price of gas could also get higher. Just when you thought it was safe for Oregon Republicans to go back to Salem, it's time for Cap and Trade 2. Based on the 86-page bill, Governor Kate Brown says we need to get this done. Senator Herman Bertschuger says maybe it's just time for voters to make the decision. Cap and Trade 2 in committee tomorrow.
How am I supposed to come out of that? All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about what a beautiful day it was, and we're going to talk mountains too, because I got a couple of great pictures for you. This one from our Skycam showing the alpenglow on Mount St. Helens as the sun was going down. Absolutely beautiful. You can even see Mount Rainier right over there, over the left or western shoulder of Mount St. Helens. It was a 5-mountain day, basically, if you stood in the right place. And you know who was really standing in the right place today was Eric Brahms. Portland Mountain Rescue was up high on Mount Hood, above the Palmer, and up towards Crater Rock, and he took this picture of what are called chicken heads. See that? It happens when you get warm snow. It gets pushed by, well, sometimes skiers, but in this case, wind, and then it refreezes into these formations called chicken heads, and the wind kind of works on it and combs it, kind of like feathers on top of a chicken's head. So anyway, a really cool shot. Illumination Rock down there looking off towards the west and southwest, I believe, from high on Mount Hood. So we thank Eric Brahms for sending that picture in to us as well. So tomorrow, it'll be cloudy or foggy in the morning, or both. We don't get a lot of sun tomorrow until maybe late in the day. We'll have some rain around midday. Then it turns to showers later in the day. So all in all, we get rain, but it won't be a complete soaker of a day. However, it will get a lot wetter over the weekend. And back to our snow theme, with the pictures I was showing you, we get a lot of snow in the Cascades over the next couple of days. I'd say at least 2 feet from Thursday through Sunday. We'll go about 25 inches or so, and then it begins to dry out as we go into next week. So if you like sunshine, you're going to like the 7-day forecast. We get the rain to showers tomorrow, just scattered showers on Valentine's Day. We'll get some dry weather there. Rain again Saturday, stronger showers Sunday. Then here comes the drying next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, which is good because Monday is a holiday for many.
An update for you now on our series inside Oregon's only women's prison. Last week, we debuted Life in Prison, following 3 women, Vanessa, Amy, and Mariah. They were working hard behind bars, putting together detailed plans to help them re-enter the real world and build a better life. Tonight, our Maggie Vespa didn't want to let the story go, so she's checking back in with one of the women. And as planned, Vanessa is out of prison and working hard to help those still serving time.
Freedom is a fragile thing.
Sorry, it gets hard to talk about this.
Losing it can be crushing.
I feel like a caged animal.
So KGW was surprised and grateful when 3 women inside Coffee Creek Correctional Facility in Wilsonville agreed more than a year ago to let us tell their stories.
To participate, we would have to just be honest about what happened.
We were there to put a spotlight.
Okay. All right, good morning. Good morning.
On life.
What'd you learn from your focus groups? Anything?
Funded and run by Mercy Corps Northwest, Life, or Lifelong Information for Entrepreneurs, is a nearly 9-month course that teaches women to build 2 plans. One, to run a small business. The other, to rebuild their lives after prison. We followed Mariah, Amy, and Vanessa through the whole process, knowing all the while one was scheduled to get out months before the others.
It's important. It's doing the work that matters. It's our
Last week, a little more than a month after she walked out of prison, we met up with Vanessa Sherrod. She and her 10-year-old daughter, Sophia, were in Salem at the state capitol to support a bill funding the Family Preservation Project. It helps kids visit and have regular contact with their parents in prison.
The scale one? Yeah. Well.
And this was the kind of work Vanessa had dreamed of behind bars. The only hitch? The pace of politics. The public hearing she came to speak at was packed and testimony on this bill was delayed. But Vanessa doesn't give up easily.
I can't imagine what being incarcerated would have been like without this program.
Monday, she came to Salem again with bright shirts and backup.
FPP gave me the opportunity to have a relationship with my daughter.
Lots of backup.
This has an emergency clause, and I believe this is a case where this is truly an emergency.
In short, Monday, the first public hearing for House Bill 4131 finally happened. It would fund the Family Preservation Project for 7 years. Normally, money for that program hasn't been an issue, but last year's GOP walkout over cap and trade blocked the vote needed to set that money aside. Nonprofits picked up the slack for 1 year, and now supporters don't want to take any chances.
This helps parents who are incarcerated to have goals.
I didn't know where I was going to parole to when I released. I didn't know where I was going to obtain clothing, hygiene, all of those things, and FPP stepped up. It was whatever was stopping me from being able to be a healthy mother and being able to be a healthy member of my community once I released. They stepped in to help.
And Vanessa, a wife and mom less than 2 months out of prison, is joining this fight.
It's like, you know how they say it takes a village? You know what I mean? It really felt like that. We had our village, and we were able to connect and create and make a bigger village to have our children feel supported, our families feel supported.
Maggie Vespa joining us now. It's great to see how well Vanessa is doing.
She's doing so well. She's happy, she's healthy, she's enrolled to start college in April, getting a degree in social work, and then she's really bent on getting this bill passed, which we should note, they had a work session about it today, so we're seeing progress on it, which is really cool.
So Vanessa's one of the 3 women that we met through this whole series. Amy and Mariah, how are they doing?
So Amy and Mariah are both still at Coffee Creek. We hear that they're happy with the series, which we're glad about because they put in a lot of work and time. Amy is set to get out later this month, and then Mariah is getting out in July. So fingers crossed that they do well too.
So Life in Prison, this entire series, all the work that Maggie has done, more than a year long of reporting. It's all on our YouTube page right now.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we keep following up on this is because the response has been amazing.
Huge.
From the people out there watching this. So continue to reach out, ask us your questions, use the hashtag #HeyDan. Maggie, thank you.
Sure.
What do these big-time New York elites know about small-town Oregon?
We knew going into it that so many of my classmates had been struggling with drugs, alcohol, suicide.
More than you might think when the story continues.
If you're looking for a new book, here's one that's worth your time. It's by Nicholas Kristof and Cheryl Wudunn. They are a husband and wife team, Pulitzer Prize winners, both of them, New York Times journalists. Basically the Beyonce and Jay-Z of shedding light on America's collapsing rural economy. This book that they wrote together goes back to Kristof's years growing up in Yamhill, Oregon. He realized later in life that a lot of the kids he grew up riding the bus with aren't with us anymore. I had a chance to talk to Nicholas and Cheryl about their book and about the crisis that rural America finds itself in now.
I think one of the things that struck us was how many children are affected and vulnerable. So we knew going into it that so many of my classmates had been struggling with drugs, alcohol, suicide, that a quarter of the kids on my old school bus were gone. What we hadn't appreciated was how many of their kids and grandkids were really at the edge of an abyss and in very difficult conditions because of these sort of, some toxic home environments.
Jobs are so central to people's existence, and that jobs are not just a stream of income. It's not just the money that you get from the job, but it's also a sense of purpose, a sense of identity and belonging. And so when jobs disappear, it not only, is bad for the individual person, but it really creates a sense of loneliness and alienation, and that's how people started sort of, falling into a downward spiral.
I talked to them for about 40 minutes, more time than we have this entire show. I mean, I kind of trapped them in here and wouldn't let them go. I kept asking them questions. If it piqued your interest at all, we have the full conversation with Nicholas Kristof and Cheryl Wudunn up on our YouTube channel right now. While you're there, hit the subscribe button. All right, we're still trolling the story Twitter handle right now, so keep those messages coming up. Pick up your phone, use the hashtag HeyDan, tell us what you're thinking, because we're going to be reading some comments when we come back. We're also keeping Portland weird with a car that needs a little help. Keeping Portland weird tonight is this car that looks like it came fresh from the factory line. At least that's what the Reddit user who let us use this picture was telling us. So I want to give a little advice to the person who parked. Dude, bad park job. Keep it back behind the stop sign. Come on, man. It's a whack job there. Hey, if you're keeping Portland weird out there and you see something that is weird, let us know. We want to know about it. Send it to us at the story using the hashtag HeyDan. Hey, we want to read some comments from you tonight. We got a bunch during the show. A lot about the kicker. Somebody writing, hey, just watched Dan Haggerty talking about Oregon's kicker checks. I live in Vancouver and work and pay a lot of taxes to Oregon. Are those kickers only for residents or for everyone who contributed to the pot? Thank you. I want to tell you what I think, but I'd rather tell you what I know. So let me try and figure out the exact answer for you, and we'll let you know both on your social media accounts and right here on the story. Also, David writing in saying, wouldn't mind so much if the state kept the kicker if the state's taxes weren't so high in the first place. That's a big conversation, dude. But this is the place to have it, so why not? Thanks for being with us tonight. For now, that's the end of the story. We'll send it over to Laurel Porter in the news at 6:30.